That's what the whole timeline split, kind of like concept of a bifurcation, was alluding to. And, you know, like free will, there will be these different kind of like layers of reality that we're opting into or we're aligning with. And I see that like the largest part of the timeline split had taken place in 2025. And that we're, you know, that's actually how 2026 got started off with such a bang. So much happened because literally like a consciousness choice was made.
A huge day for the channel. My guest today calls herself the Alchemist, and she means it in the oldest, truest sense of the word, not lead into gold, but the transmutation of the soul itself. Sara Elkhaldy is a mystic, a teacher, a poet, and the host of Mystery Teachings on Gaia, one of my favorite shows. And she's taken some of the most demanding and esoteric material, talking about natural law, densities, timeline splits, the false light, Gnostic cosmology. I'm so excited because we're going to have such an amazing conversation. Finally, I get to talk to my sister from another mother, and we're going to, for real, yeah, that's right. And so there's so much to talk about. Welcome to the Reality Revolution, Sara.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited, and I'm such a big fan of your show.
That blows me. I feel like we're from the same soul family. We're the information seekers, the one that no matter what we're doing we're constantly acquiring information. I could see that in you. I can see your never-ending hunger for more information. I can see how that's filled up your life because of how you teach and where you're teaching from. So before we get into everything else, talk about that early on. When did that start for you? This just unending desire for acquiring knowledge about the world around you?
Always. I feel like when, you know, a pet accidentally gets high, it's like, oh no, they're going to become too aware. Like I was like a kid, and now I have words for it. I felt like always too much. Now it fits inside my energy field, or at least I always push it so that I'm just a little bit always like overwhelmed. But right. Before it was like overwhelming and I didn't know what was going on. And so I was always seeking. And that was honestly where everything had unraveled from that. It has this like core, insatiable thirst for truth and understanding of the nature of reality.
Man, there's just so much to go into. There's so much that you've talked about. So on your Gaia show, you're breaking down different concepts, taking complex concepts and making them easier to understand. And I'm wondering where the core of it comes from. Is it from the mystery school tradition? I see that you're totally influenced by Gurdjieff, which I could talk to you for an entire hour on the fourth way, and just alchemy and Gnostic texts. If you were to say where it primarily comes from, is there anything in particular that you would say?
I say I will definitely say that I cherry pick.
Right.
I cherry pick the things that in mysticism that I align the most with. And then because I will not have full resonance with a system, I cannot actually claim to be a teacher of that system. The closest is fourth way for sure. So I can claim to be a fourth way teacher. But all of the other ones I see where my own claircognizance has filled in where I feel like there is a falter in specific teachings, or where there might be like a line of code that might have been broken or something. So I very much pride myself of taking mysticism and almost upgrading it, or one could even look at it as restoring it to something that, and I feel that about many of us through all these different ages. What you'll see is that teachings either were faulty from the get-go, or they were systemically broken down through, you know, distortions over time. And so I like to clean that up. But I would say that my main sources would be Gnostic cosmology, that just like definitely resonates with me. And then Hermeticism, as you may already know, is it's like the opposite arm of Gnosticism, but in a complementary way. They're like co-systems. And so because of that, I see myself more so coming from my core essence, shall I say, from Hermeticism. But because I don't feel it's useful, to be honest, to always teach from such a high level, I will purposely go into more of Gnostic vibrations because it's helpful more. And it's, you know, like pretty much the closest system you could say that if you had to piece a system over reality and see which one fits the best. Not all of Gnosticism, because that's like a very large structure, but I would say a lot of the core themes of Gnosticism fit almost perfectly over this reality as to like what exactly is going on.
Oh, there's so many questions. What would be the first? It's such an odd coincidence as I'm sitting here and we're doing this that I on Thursday did a deep dive on Gurdjieff and Ouspensky for an episode, right? So you know how it's natural sorts, it's in your mind when you do one of those deep dives, because you and I both do these deep dives, right? And it was like do you ever notice that as you're choosing topics, you're led to things that you realize later, oh, that was the perfect timing for me to do that topic.
Yes.
I wanted to talk about that. I have this all the time. It's like something else is working through me when I do these episodes, right? So what I was saying was, if we go back to Gurdjieff, and the thing that really lit me up as I'm seeing the discussion between Ouspensky and Gurdjieff, and in particular, this concept that we're sort of all automatons, or non-player characters. We're asleep, running through a loop where, it's outside forces, and it's a loop. They even talk about eternal recurrence, where we're living it over and over again. Even if it's through different lives, those lives appear to be similar in recurrence, which still matches with me. And so when you start doing the work and you feel that awakening where you're observing yourself, it's a huge game changer, isn't it? When you begin to awaken through the fourth way protocols.
Yes. And I will say that Ouspensky's work helped my mind awaken. And then the other disciple of Gurdjieff's, Jeanne de Salzmann, that's when I got the somatic and body awakening. So if you ever have read her work, it's far more about the practice. Yeah, it's far more about the practice, and she's a very good teacher. And I don't know if anyone ever told her that, but I'd love to tell her that. She's a very good teacher because she speaks in first person, or third person rather, where she's going, I notice this about this. Oh, I have tension here in my mind when I think of this. And then that brings up this inner correlation. So she's like working you through it. And little did she know that like later on, if anyone reads that book, it would be massively compassionate, since so many people have blocks to really owning things. And so you see somebody fully like owning it, and that really relaxes you into the process and allows you to explore yourself without more of the mental processes, or even sometimes groups. I've been a part of esoteric circles before, which have shown me that if you praise someone or even just know a little less than somebody, that could be dangerous in the esoteric field. The esoteric field is filled with dark egos. And if you admire the wrong person, so what I've learned also from her work is what it looks like to be in service to others in a compassionate way that's also not too demeaning others, allowing them their own process as well as teaching them directly. There's like this happy mixture within her work that I really appreciate.
You really address that, the nature of service, and whether it's you're demeaning someone else or they're getting permission from you, the process, the sort of the exchange that occurs when you give service. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so I definitely don't think that the world is just meant to be like everything is identical, everything is at the equal stage, the equal level, and nothing needs to have, that level of differentiation, and therefore that level of discernment and enhancements and evolutions that come with the free will universe. So with that, it's very important to understand that clarity needs to be balanced with compassion. Sovereignty needs to be balanced as well. And so I feel like if there's one thing that came very easy to me simply because of my past, experience inside the esoteric field, it's allowing people to have their own process, allowing people to, how I can guide them as close as my creative abilities can in order to help activate something within them. But then from there, what I truly love is how I can tell the fruits of the teachings by when people start accessing their gnosis.
And Talk to us what that means when we access our Gnosis.
Yeah, so Gnosis is direct experience. So much of my own path, actually, I teach the large topics from that knowing, but not actually what was taught to me. That's just coming from my direct experience of it. So what will happen is when it comes to Gnosis has a few layers. The first layer will be the most important, and that is to go past the name of a thing, go past the identity of it, go past what you were even taught about it. The words, the language, everything is meant to bring you up into the door of it. But even that will simply be sometimes a construct if we cannot have our own experience of it. So what I link that to is like digesting the apple of wisdom. It needs to be digested. It cannot simply be regurgitated. And so many teachings just get regurgitated because that's the best level it was connected with and therefore transmitted from. But if you can actually go deeper into any teaching, what you'll see is that whatever you were taught might be still true, you know, but that you'll start getting on your own more information about whatever that thing is. That's Gnosis, because the more you go into that, that's the knowing. That's why, you know, later on, looking back in history, the Gnostics are called Gnostics. As you know, they weren't calling themselves Gnostics at that time. But it's because specifically they kept talking about this Gnosis. And so the Gnosis is the most important part. It's the things that will be revealed to you beyond the teachings, the things that are revealed to you beyond the words. Words do a good job, a sufficient job most of the time, but they're literally meant to be the codes that help you unlock a deeper knowing that goes beyond the words.
Does it not feel like at times, something I'm exploring through my group, that we're connecting to different versions of ourselves in time? Future versions of ourselves are connecting and interacting with us in different ways. When we're going through this Gnosis, this experience where you have this idea and then suddenly you start to really think on it and it connects to a whole other thing in the Akashic, which is sort of what I have, you know, especially like if I'm just in the shower and something, it's this Gnosis, this experience where it's an expansion of the knowledge that comes to us. It's such a unique phenomenon, and thank you for putting words to it. Do you find that you can bring about that Gnosis in particular? Have you found techniques in which to use that Gnosis? If that makes sense.
For me, the strongest technique would be to go into what would be considered like right brain techniques. For instance, poetry for me has massively allowed my spirit guides from specific dimensions to really connect with me. And that would be like the strongest way that they'd be able to even access me. It's through poetry. And so what I've learned from those dimensions is that, you know, artistry, I mean, this is going to sound cliche, but we really are channels. It's like,
true.
Yeah, we're channels. Cause like I look at my best pieces of poetry and they were me actually syncing up with a specific rhythm that I wanted for that poem, but I didn't know what else. And so all I did was kind of like embody the flow or the rhythm of it. And then it takes on a certain character or a certain tone that you can't really say is mine. It'll sound like Southern sometimes, or it'll sound certain ways because not even I'm trying to. It's because that's the way that the words wanted to be framed. And so it comes with a specific like pentameter and a speed and stuff like that. So I'll notice in my poetry, I'm like, wow, I wrote this? It's really like a collaboration, because I'm connecting with very artistic dimensions. That's the best way I could put wording to them, because, you know, I know that there's many different adjectives for describing the higher realms, but specifically in this technique of poetry, they're very artistic.
That's one of the things that struck me when I read Walter Russell, is that he was this great artist that would, you know, he could play the piano and do amazing pieces of art and sculpt, and wrote poetry and things like that. And he did it. He said when he did it, he was channeling. He was channeling and connecting to the co-creator, and that was his spiritual process. That you're connecting to this form of genius that joins with you, and the best pieces of art And the best forms of creation, really, to me, that's what's happening. You're seeing a union, co-creation that's happening, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I would say that if people have no kind of like foundational experience with that, and they really want some sort of system for that, the reason I say that is because like I don't need kind of like a system anymore. So I'm trying to like retrace into what could be helpful. And I think that free flowing poetry, and anyone can do that. I hear sometimes people go, oh no, I don't write poetry. To ascend is to learn poetry. And I'm not kidding. Think about this. What is this ascension process? Is it like, we're ascended, we've ascended. Like, that's just the mind doing the best it can.
Right.
To bridge that gap, you would need the nuance and the depth and the subtlety and the breadth and the width, and all of that would be like to become a poet.
Right. The false light is one of your most striking teachings. It feeds on, that it feeds on extremes, worship dynamics, performative martyrdom. So why is the false light so much more dangerous to a sincere seeker than an obvious darkness? I love this teaching that you have. And so I want to talk about
it will twist you up.
Mm-hmm.
It will twist you up. It's because on one hand, if a person is doing things that are very low level,
mm-hmm.
you can kind of tell. You could tell when somebody's in your traditional ego state. You could tell when somebody's taken an egoic pact. So there's not really any hiding. Instead, there's like the exploration of that grandiose, and the unabashedness. When it comes to the spiritual ego or the false light has these different layers. Sometimes they're very obvious, but maybe in past ages they weren't obvious. So I don't want to make it sound like, oh, it's easy. It's easy because probably we have the osmosis now to identify it. But in past ages, false light was to regard everything from the highest transcendent state, therefore negating. So it's not necessarily that the highest state needs to be scoffed at. I see that polarity too, especially going on right now, which has made me more old-fashioned. But I see, so it's important to hold the highest level of truth and reality that one can access, knowing that we're always growing. But the false light will negate it. So it's almost like false egoism. It's like a spiritual ego on steroids, because what it's doing is negating and invalidating all of the other levels instead of realizing the multidimensional picture that is the best thing that we could call truth. It would be the subjective and objective, and not even just those two forces. It would be the subjective and the objective within the subjective.
Mm-hmm.
And that's within layers too. So it's not just like spirit matter. Objective is the highest reality, subjective is the lowest. That's not true, because even though we're in an ego, that means inherently we will have a subjective perspective.
Always.
However, the highest perspective is subjectivity that is engulfed its objectivity. Does that make sense?
Very much so. Yeah.
Okay. So it's not just objective subjective split by like higher and lower. It's objective and subjective co-creating at all levels. And when you're in a false light or spiritual ego, it can become really dangerous because, well, one, you'll see that it's masquerading. You'll see that when there's wounds, because if you can just be yourself, even if yourself is not always exalted, you'll be able to receive more higher truth anyways, because you're operating from the heart center. The heart center is not armored or shield. So there's that going on. But then also what you'll see is that it comes with extremes abuses, which like kind of like are the perfect way that like that's the red flag.
Mm-hmm.
Like it'll be like some sort of like transcendent teaching, but then for some sort of like superiority or abuse.
Right. This reminds me of recent episodes on YouTube I've watched of old spiritual gurus that have sort of been around that, sort of, they were started cults, and then people are talking about afterwards the experience that this person, I'm trying not to name names, this person presented themselves with this heightened information, and it was interesting and seductive, and the false light is so subtle. It's a built-in, it feels like it's just a built-in part of the perfectly built-in pattern built into the simulation that we have to encounter. We have to see the false light in our journey. It is important that we do. I think it enriches the spiritual journey to have that and face it and overcome it. And everybody's going through different levels of that. But the cult thing is interesting because these ideas are powerful. They change people's lives, and it can be so easily abused, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Okay, so this is so like twofold, threefold. So what I hear about that is that, okay, well, how do you justify people with very high wisdom that act so incongruent to integrity?
Right.
Which would be like psychopathic, because that's why they're even drawn to those positions of powers in the first place. And then to spread highest wisdom without the heart center balanced is...
Without the heart center.
Yeah, is exactly kind of like that formula. That gap is the formula for like the false light. So you'll have teachings that are true. I don't know how much true though, because it depends on the vessel emanating it. So I'm still actually workshopping that. That was a thought I had before. So I had that thought this morning. So maybe that's why. It's because we were going to talk about that. So I'm still workshopping like, because I don't expect purity. Like I'm not like a staunch prude. I'm not like, no, they have to be a pure source in order for the teachings to come out pure. So I'm still tinkering around with, is it still useful? Or if you're taking, from a false guru, from like a false light teacher, if you're taking the wisdom from them and it comes laced in the poison because it will be a distorted version of whatever is being taught, is that still useful? So I will leave that up to the audience to ponder as well as me. But I will say this, and that's, it is a two-way street. When you have, people have a responsibility when it comes to if they have an audience. And that is not to be what the audience wants of them. While also, so that's the trap. It's like, oh my God, now the audience doesn't know what I'm like. Half an hour the rest of the day, they've seen me on YouTube, they've seen a video of me. I have people who have sessions with me and they're like, wow, you're completely different. And I'm like, probably because I'm talking to you and I'm not talking to anybody inside my videos.
Yeah.
So there's one hand, the integrity to be your faulty self, even if you're getting praised, while also not lowering the bar. Does that make sense? You can't lower the bar so much to be like, look, we're all human. We're all sex addicts. It's like, hold on. There are some things actually that are sure sign shots of or features of a person being in spiritual integrity. So you can't lower the bar. I noticed that happening, a lowering of the bar to where like all of these different distortions can come in, but then also you can't be put on a pedestal to where you're perfect. And you have to kind of like each person now, we're faced with these very large projections of what it's like to have spiritual authority or in the false light and see how it's utterly abused so that we can see what wolves in sheep's clothing looks like. And then find also within ourselves, not saying that we all would be that abusive or predatorial, not at all, but to see within ourselves what is authentic about me and where I'm at. What do I need to work on? Because that's what the false light teacher won't do. They won't ever look at themselves and say, they'll just receive praise. And it'll go into this like empty void that's insatiable, but it will be no actual internal work to where they're working on themselves to self-correct. And so what a person needs to do is just use that as like a lesson or a mirror, like, wow, that exists. Now we have that on file. Now I know, like I've gained more discernment. I've gained more wisdom. And then also to make sure that we don't fall into any of these like extremes, because one thing that I have no problem telling anyone is that I could probably, if I really thought about it, list 10 people who I utterly admire. So I don't want people to think that they can't admire people just because people are abusing that. We go into so many different extremes. We go like, well, now, no, you'll take my power. People who are predatorial take power. Other people just kind of like want appreciation for their services.
That's a definite difference. And so, but we're constantly dealing with this dynamic. Your NPC organic portals episode sort of reframes the idea of the NPC, and so I'd love to talk about that. So tell me what explain it for my group that's watching right now.
Yeah, so when I first learned in Gnosticism about the 3 different categories of humans here on Earth, I thought that was fascinating. And then when I found out what the NPC phenomenon was, I instantly plugged it into Gnosticism. So when I'm learning a teaching, sometimes I'll like filter it through one of the systems to see if it fits. And it kind of just like fit perfectly into what would be the lowest level of consciousness in the Gnostic cosmology. That would be the Hylix. In other classes or in other texts, they're called the Sarkets, but they're mainly known as the Hylix. And the Hylix are ones that are just sheer matter. And if anyone knows Gnostic cosmology, that's a bad word. Calling somebody matter is a bad word. So saying that someone's consciousness is completely matter, there is a little bit...
No spirit, right?
No spirit. Yeah,
right.
Thank you for clarifying that. So no spirit and no soul. Soul in this case would be psyche. And so psyche, aka soul, would in the Gnostic cosmology be like the next grade up from the Hylix. It would be the ones that, once again, when I was doing a video on that, another thing that just I channeled came into me was, I think Leonardo da Vinci was the one who was accredited to. There are 3 types of people: those who see, those who see when they are shown, and those who do not see. And at the time, it seemed like a good teaching. Now I look back and I'm like, wow, that was harsh, telling people they don't see. But also, it's the time period. Anytime you look at any teaching from any teacher, you have to also look at what time period were they teaching in, because that's completely relevant to the teaching. And
Absolutely.
that's why many teachings now don't make sense. It's because of the time period. And so that time period that I made the first video of it on, that later I did in a much larger case with Gaia. The first time I made it, it was quarantine. And I was kind of mad at people. So I was like, those who don't see, those who see.
Right.
See what you show. So it made more sense at the time. But I think that all of these are coherent. I don't think they're too far off. I even think that Gnosticism would say that you cannot get out of the Hylic grade. Whereas I view things far more now like through a completely different lens. I go, no, this is like a stage of consciousness.
Exactly.
And so that's why you see I can't teach saying I'm a Gnostic teacher, because
Right, I get
my
it.
own
No.
spin on every. Yeah, I go.
Right.
Oh, I don't know if I could.
There's that part of your mind that's putting it and connecting it all together, and it's amazing how it can all sort of, you pick this one and maybe not this, but kinda, and a little bit around. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So when I like upgraded the system, or I don't know, like
I just feel all of our consciousness is very much the same, but we can be pulled out and woken. I've seen it. We can move out of the NPC stage.
Absolutely.
It's what the 4th way is talking about. It's not permanent, which that's why I really do believe people that are watching this right now are probably having that inkling deep down. I believe that there is a subconscious factor that moves us in a process to awaken, hints at it, signals to us. There's a deeper part of us that's saying it's time to wake up. Click on this video, read this book, do this meditation. That kind of thing is happening because we're being led slowly through this process. And more people are going to start waking up in the way that you're talking about. They're no longer a non-player character. Spirit begins to awaken within them. It's a small spark. That's how I have to see it, because it would be so sad if it wasn't the case. If they're NPCs that are NPCs that never become, that can never have any way of leaving, right?
Well, yeah, but I don't even believe that. I believe everyone
Yeah.
has a divine spark. And so that's another thing in mysticism. You'll see that in the Kabbalah that some people don't have the spark. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to use that system.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
believe everyone has a spirit. It's just a matter of many different factors as to why people would be at different levels of consciousness.
Right. And what would be the best, if I was to go and read a Gnostic text right now that could expand my knowledge, that's a good starting point for someone that hasn't really got into that literature, what would you recommend first?
For sure, Apocryphon of John, the secret book
Apocryphon
of
of John.
John. Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So that's a Sethian text. Now, there
Right.
was Sethian branch of Gnosticism and then Valentinian. Valentinian had a different way of looking at the Demiurge. The Sethians are the ones, they're much like the Cathars. They're very much hardcore, like matter is evil. Like whoever's running this show, the Demiurge, yeah, they're not benevolent. It's and so they're very much like always adorning and training the vessel in order to get to the God above God, the pleroma. And so you have that very staunch dualism with Sethianism. When you get to the Valentinian, I used to resonate with the Valentinian, and then I healed more and I realized, oh no, this system is kind of just like religion, but like done in the Gnostic style. And then I found out that Valentin, I don't know if you know much about him.
Not as much. No, tell us.
So the man who made the Valentinian Gnosticism, that whole branch,
Right.
very
That
large
whole branch.
yeah, views the Demiurge as being in its own state of progress and evolution as well. And so I like that. But Valentinian was a bishop, a Catholic bishop, who was actually up for Pope, and he lost that. So he was sour, and then he left and made Gnosticism. So you'll still see the hierarchy portrayed in Catholicism. It's just a little done into the Gnostic flavors and then with his own genius imprinted. But you'll still see how the feminine is still depicted as only not an equal, never the equal. Not always the cosmic damsel in distress, never the equal. And if we're going to be like completely accurate about the past, and I know the past is many ages, so I'm not speaking for all the ages, but in past civilizations, there was much more reverence and maturity around genders. There was not what you have now, which is we have to accept the imbalance and it's our problem, our wounding if we don't. That is a program, but I know you know that.
No. What fascinates me is, that for the longest time, they would look into the sky. God was a woman. God was a womb that surrounded. That's how they viewed it. It was a woman giving birth. Until things slowly changed from that. What would you say from your knowledge? The question I wanted to ask, let me back up. This made me think of Oahspe. I just read Oahspe, and it totally links. It has the Archons. Have you ever had a chance to read about Oahspe?
No.
Let's see. It's like 2,000 pages. It's got illustrations. In like the 1800s, this guy, John Newbrough, just started typing. He didn't even know what he was typing, and he just did it straight for like 365 days. It's saying the same thing. It's saying that there's these different levels of afterlife, and that some people in the afterlife tried to be their own gods, like Archons, and sort of like created their own afterlives. And so then other people from above came and fought to stop the other afterlives, and that there's levels of God, and there's like one thing that they consider God, which is only like on a cyclical service over periods of time that are replaced. And then there's a God, and it's this whole entire thing talking about a lot of the stuff using similar names. And I'm just fascinated when something like that just kind of just comes out. You know what I mean?
No, and that's actually so relevant. I just did a video on my YouTube channel on the life review because I was like, wait, there genuinely is a life review process. I know that.
Clearly there is from too many different people. Yeah.
But I see the synthetic layers of that process, and really it comes back to an episode that I did for season 2 mystery teachings on Gaia. It's the episode on the Samsara and the Demiurge. And that episode clarified things for me that all of season 2, it's like that season was Sarah's deepest questions that she wants clarity on for her own peace.
It was absolutely amazing. Everybody needs to go and watch it. So, yeah, no, it's incredible. You did a great job on that. Everybody needs to watch it. Go on Gaia right now. Just binge watch it.
Yeah, so the Demiurge Samsara episode was what made all of the systems combine for me to make sense. It was like even star seeds and how similar they sound to bodhisattvas. And even how there's always kind of like this system where people can be in different layers of it and at different levels of consciousness and stuff. And so I believe that that also transfers over into the afterlife, whether you can say that that's a person's own thought forms, whether that's a systemic overlay and stuff. Now we could get philosophical about it.
Yeah. You talk about the timeline split as one of our most critical junctures. For someone that's feeling that split as anxiety rather than expansion, because I get a sense that there's a little bit of both of that. What's the mechanic, in your opinion, of choosing the right timeline?
Curiosity. Curiosity's been what's led me. The other factor that's been happening in the background of, you know, this age, every age, but especially now, is the fact that the economy is so up in the air. And what that does is really put people inside such more survivalism that the anxiety, I cannot simply soothe by saying, well, you just this and that, because it's very multi-layered at that point when a person is having so many different crushing stressors rather than creative stressors. I'm very grateful for my stress. It's creative stress. I'm very heartbroken because I can feel how much, you know, the collective is in stress, not creative stress. Right. And so it's about being able to create a new system, because I even made a manifestation video 2 years ago, and then I never shared it ever, because I was like, at the, you know, once I was done with that episode, I went, no, I think I want to do that over again. And then I just never did. So actually this is a call for me to redo that specific, because I've done a few on manifestation, but I want to do this one flavor of it where it's, what if you're meant to create that world? So we want that car, right? And that's fine if we get the car. I am not a prude. I am very liberté. Like, get the car. If you manifested it, get the car. I'm so happy for you. But if a person cannot line up with whatever path that they choose, with getting into a state of empowerment as far as where they feel like they can have a meaningful purpose while also keeping a roof over their head and having all of their financial burdens, you know, neutralized. What I would say is, maybe then, where do you have power? Maybe it's in creating a new system that then isn't crushing you. So I see many people that are lined up with money and they're, you know, they're abundant and they're doing a lot with it for consciousness. But also I say to the people that are anxious, and I can feel, you know, it's the reason why they're anxious is because they want to move that energy and they feel like they can't, like they don't have the resources to move it. So I would say move it in whatever direction is the least resistance that will allow you the most empowerment. So I'll give you an example so that that doesn't sound too abstract. If a person has all this pent up energy and now it's experienced as neurosis, anxiety, all these things, because they don't have the resources to achieve what they want or to move that energy so that it's not anxious, so that it's in flow, then what they need to do is look out, like, what is oppressing them from what they want to bring into the world, their creative project. Is it a book? Is no publisher oppressing you? No, everyone's rejecting you? I'm just giving examples, but I want people to start with these examples to look at, like, oh, well, just try to identify what exactly it is that you want to create. In this case, the example, the surrogate, is a book. And then the block that's stopping you would be like, you're getting rejected from publishers, or even if you self-publish it yourself, no one will read it, whatever. That would be the block, right? So that energy can't go there right now, or it can, but it's just not the way you want it, people want it to, in this example. Well, that energy can be transferred into a completely different project. And that doesn't mean that the book won't get made. That doesn't mean that your original creation or manifestation will not get made. What it means is that you're going in and you're using that energy so that it doesn't make you spiral into depression or being defeated or hopeless. You're using that energy now for a different creation, and one that's meant for a new system. The system, the way that it is now, is literally blocking creations. Mm-hmm. It's putting them in a hierarchy that's constricted, constricted, constricted. So literally our most creative evolution and the universe are conspiring, collaborating together to bust us out of this, because the universe wants more creativity and ingenuity as well. So it doesn't serve the universe, this system, the way that it is right now. And so because of that, then the call is literally a spiritual one for putting the tension on us, evolutionarily speaking, to go, what is a system that it would look like that you would be able to create this? And that is how that's how the new earth is born. It's not from people who are comfortable and have, a lot of comfort. It's coming from people who have blocked energy and now need to question that, and then what the system would look like and how they can contribute to those creations.
It's so true. So well said. I suddenly, out of the blue, as I was doing episodes, and the process of making an episode, it's a daily process, because you and I have one thing in common, that we're constantly creating new stuff every day, right? And all of a sudden I was just called to do more money episodes, because I consistently met people at a place where they couldn't even go into a spiritual discussion because they were so in survival mode. And so I realized it was the test. It's the key part of us moving into the new earth, is how we deal with money. Right. And we can overcome the system. That's a part of what we're going through, is understanding that what's happening in the world doesn't really matter to us. That we're in our own reality bubble, and we're learning about why that doesn't matter, but we're being faced with this reflection in a mirror that says it does. And that understanding of reality creation, that fine-tuning of our God power, I think it's actually a good thing. If we can face it, confront it, and overcome it, the process of overcoming it, we come to realize our true power. That's what money can do for us. And when I would do these episodes, I would get the purists that would come on and be like, Brian, I really used to love your channel, but you know what? You talk about money too much. You're too much of a materialist. And I get that. And I feel like it's at the fundamental core of the spiritual journey that we're on in the present moment, is us facing our money truth and understanding how to overcome it. We come into that energy, and that's what we're doing anyway. It's an energy shift. And because money is just energy. We're learning how to take in all this energy. So many spiritual people I meet feel guilty about their prosperity, and it limits them, and then they end up not having the power.
Yeah.
Yes. They're disempowered, and that's the thing. They need to have the power. The power comes from the money.
You are so right. No, you're so right. And okay, but do you know, well, I won't say I know exactly how you got to that conclusion. You're smart and you came from your own past, but I know one thing that contributed to you understanding that. And that is that you care about the end game. You care about the biggest goal.
Yes.
People cannot see that. So they can't see the greater good. All they see is you're charging, you're giving that money episode, or I'm glad that you do those, because
somebody's got to do it, right?
I'm glad that you do them, because money is like the holding the spiritual community hostage. I'll tell you, back in my day, if I couldn't really, like back in my day, when I couldn't afford a session with my shaman, I would save my money up. It never occurred to me to go be ugly online, or to go try to shame somebody for their talents that they spent their whole year incurring, or not their whole life. So the bigger picture people go and they see that people have a life journey that they did to acquire things, and then they don't just stop there. They go and they apply that to the whole world, and then to the universe. They go, how are we going to fix this whole system? So if the spiritual community, and it's very convenient, by the way, to pressure the mystics and the healers and the spiritual community to be in false martyrdom and false scarcity, I find that very convenient when you see that these are the people who, if they have money the most, they'll just be happy to create a new system. So I see that the bigger picture people
That's what they're trying to create a new system now.
Yeah.
With their resources, right? So
Yeah, no, I say we're all doing that. And you know what? Like other types of communities even, they view it as supporting whoever. And I'm not talking about like gurus and stuff like that. Like if there's clearly like a opulent guru, you know, like who has a bunch of Rolls Royce, you don't need to give them more money. They clearly are fine on their own. But my point is that if you see somebody and you're appreciating their work, it shouldn't be looked at as like, oh, great, like money's involved. You should look like, oh, I'll support you. And I see even like other communities have no problem with that concept. But the spiritual community, the one that's supposed to be the most conscious, has that block about supporting like something. And if you really think about that, if you're supporting people who you think that are integrity and who think that will be able to make those moves, then you're also indirectly supporting the new earth as well.
100%. So well said. So soul retrieval was the doorway for you. And you've said that your shaman Carla Fox was transitioning out of that work just as she did yours. Looking back,
I was her last like shamanic session before she went to quantum work. And I even had to ask her, I was like, could you humor me? Could you just like do a soul retrieval session, you know, because you could still do it in the quantum sphere, but I wanted one the way that it was portrayed inside the book that I had read.
Well, tell us about that. Tell us about so for people that haven't heard that story.
Yeah, so what led me to even become a healer, I was fascinated by this concept of soul loss and soul retrieval. Soul retrieval is a shamanic process. That's where the name comes from, the shamanic traditions. And it's where inside the shamanic modality or model of life, you could look at it as like the underworld would be like the subconscious, and then there would be the higher world, and then the middle world. Soul retrieval is when the shamanic practitioner journeys into the underworld to retrieve an aspect that was stuck in the state of soul loss. This could be from a past life. This could be from a significant trauma in this life, but it's some sort of fragmentation that you could think of it as. I always get the visual of, have you seen that Superman movie where like there's this floating piece of shard of mirror in. Right.
I've seen that. First one, when they're going into the void, they're stuck in the mirror and it shatters, right? I remember that.
Yeah, and then there's like this piece of mirror that this thing is in, and that's how I've always imagined the soul loss, because it's still out. It's like it's still in the event.
Right.
It had been, another creative way we could look at it is it's the bodyguard. It had taken the hit for the overall self. And by taking that hit, it had absorbed the shock of that trauma. And it, by absorbing that shock, had split off into a state of loss. Right. And so I was really into Robert Monroe's work also, because my shaman Carla Fox had got me into Robert Monroe. And I started really kind of like, because they were right in front of me at the same time, I don't know if I would have still made these connections if they weren't right in front of me. But I started looking at his whole ascension process as a process of soul retrieval. Because if you think about all of the things that create soul loss, if a person is experiencing soul loss, it's like what the state of humanity is in.
It's fascinating when you look at all the other things that we could talk about. You have such a huge breadth of different topics. What's the favorite thing? When you're doing an episode on one particular topic, do you have a favorite that's your wheelhouse, where that you love to talk about the most?
I think the false light, because there's so many different layers to it. There's the false light. I did like a video 4 years ago on it, and it did really well. And I'm glad, because at that time, once again, the artist in the art period, at that time, it was very much about like the system. And so my latest piece on the false light was more about spirituality. It wasn't so much based on the 3D system. But I could make several more videos on even the system again, or spirituality. There's so many different facets to it that usually when I'm doing a false light episode, I just try to go, okay, Sarah, pick one of the storylines that is coming through the strongest in this now moment, and then craft that. Don't just try to build them all and have it be a mess.
I totally see the False Light book in the multiverse just sitting right there on the shelf. Totally see it with your name on it. So, some of the cool stuff you talk about in season 2 of Mystery Teachings is like Sophia, the Demiurge, and what lies outside the matrix. Can you give us your spin on what you say is existing outside the matrix?
Yeah, so what I wanted to portray in the Sophia episode, and I don't know if this was achieved, but what the intent was, is that what if she wasn't so innocent? What if she was not human, but what if she had the curiosity, but at an existential level? And when I first was introduced to this concept of like wisdom, Sophia, we tend to put an overlay over Sophia. And this overlay is like, oh, what is ideal? What is, you know, feminine, or what is this and that? And then the more I started learning about Gnostic cosmology and how she has this other side, the descendant part, the Achamoth. And then there's different New Age ways that we could even dissect her descended part, but we won't get into. But just, I saw that she's a trickster archetype. She's even depicted in some cosmic or in some Gnostic Genesis stories as being the serpent that gives the apple, that convinces Adam and Eve to take the apple, because she's blowing into them some pneuma, some spirit. So she's this trickster archetype, and I really wanted to paint her almost like in an entirety rather than kind of like an idealism. And so beyond the duality of this matrix and Sophia, what I see is that there is sheer potential multiverses. I don't actually see the multiverse within this universe. And I know that many people call the lower parts of this universe the multiverse. That's fine, like I don't care. But I see the multiverse as being outside of this universe, where there's other universes that you can go into. So outside of this universe is when we are truly tapped into our sheer eternity. We are eternal creators. And from there, it's like, what narratives and stories, and therefore logoses, do you want to create your worlds with?
The concept of the different levels of logos, are we just becoming larger logos in perpetuity? Is that how you see it?
Well, that's an amazing way of seeing it. Yeah.
Right. At some point, we can become a planet or a sun or a galaxy or a universe or a collection of universes, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
even America says that.
They can even see when they look that certain galaxies kind of coordinate together, that are moving together. And to me, that's just a larger form of intelligence out there. You can see these groupings, and everything is just the logos just expanding, getting larger along the way. That's how it comes to me, right?
Yeah. And I'm very much here for the whole journey. I'm aspiring towards, exploring outside this universe.
Right. I mean, me too. Let's meet on the other side of the universe, and we can compare notes, right?
I mean, this is all fun, but
right. But I do believe we have the ability to remote view in consciousness, to experience some of these places, to get a feel for it. And so that's what's really amazing, is the incredible, amazing power of our consciousness when we can enter into states where we can enter into the Akashic, where we can expand and we can have these incredible, where we can sense into other places and other experiences. I'd love to get your feel for that.
Yeah. So I don't know if I've ever said this I'm sure I've said it before, but when I was like beginning to have my strongest spiritual awakenings, I was interacted with a lot by different beings, both positive and negative.
Right.
And I was specifically learning from Arcturians. And they were kind of just showing how this is 3D. Because it's one thing to say 3D, it's another to be shown like, oh,
right,
this is like just a radio station channel, like 3D. And then to understand how everything's taking place in the same kind of like time, space. Everything's taking place in the same space, and then just the time is the different dials. And so from that, I had learned that beyond remote viewing, you can get information in every way possible. You can remote view anything because you're just tapping into the Akashic. Even if you're tapping into the future when it comes to remote viewing, you're looking at a potential. But if you're remote viewing anything from the past, which you can, that's just one way of tapping into the Akashic. No different than how if a person goes out of body and they could tap into the Akashic that way. Or some people can literally just access the Akashic right now. So there's so many different ways that you can interface with reality once you know how everything is literally just taking place in like one moment.
Right. And to go back to the soul retrieval, it feels like we can kind of sort of go on a treasure hunt where we can go and find these different events and experiences in this life and other realms of our own lifetimes, where we can, it's just like this power that's held in a little vault somewhere and we can just take it back, right? And that kind of feels like we're just going around like on a treasure hunt. You get excited then for the thing that the trauma that you avoided. You get excited because that's where your power, that's where it's been sitting there safely for you to come and get it back, right?
Yeah, and the shamanic way of getting a soul retrieval, because I perform soul retrievals in my work, but in the quantum, everything's like very quick. You can do things very quick. If you go and get an actual traditional shamanic soul retrieval, it could even be fun, because I remember I was like told the story of what happened when she went into my subconscious, what my inner child had, what objects symbolize, what they portray, and things like that. She had told me that my inner child had shown her a treasure chest, and so she had to open the treasure chest, and inside there was kind of like how you said the missing piece from that. The missing piece was a lighthouse. And so she took the lighthouse out and she asked the inner child, where do you want this to go? And she said, in my heart. She was like, I've never seen that before. Like, so it's very interesting when you do soul retrieval work, because when you're going into the subconscious and you're retrieving aspects, they're literally energies that you can have through symbols and objects, but they're literally energies that are now going back into being restored into your energy field in a way where it now will be integrating until it catches up with you in this now moment. The best way I could explain what I just said was, if you have seen the movie, what are those movies with Marty? Back to the Future?
Right, Back to the Future, that's right.
Okay, so in Back to the Future, if you look, it keeps checking his work through a photo, because he'll know it's something. Yeah, so basically, if you get a piece, if you go and you get a soul retrieval, and a piece of energy is now being integrated back into your system, it will integrate until, if you were to look at a photo and check your work, like, it would be changed, because that means that now that piece is integrated, the energetic signature of that memory loss, or the energetic signature of that event, had kind of been like neutralized, like a sine wave that was neutralized. Right.
Just like you changed time, like in the movie.
Yes. Yeah.
It's exactly that, which is exciting. And we can reach this point where we come back to ourselves. And so that's what's so amazing about that teaching. You talk about natural law, that we are sovereign and free, responsible for both our actions and inactions, and others is the maturation curriculum of humanity as a baby form of universal consciousness. I love that. So can you talk a little bit more about a natural law and your teachings on it?
Yeah, so like any teacher, we enhance what we want to enhance, and we disenhance or diminish what we want to diminish. So I enhanced natural law because I don't know how to teach it in its entirety. It would need more than one episode. So I enhanced it in a way where it should come with a disclaimer. It should come with, this is for a service to others path.
Right.
And because the universe is far more kind of like complex than simply do unto others as you would have done unto you, because how many times can we say that? But what about that completely narcissistic, abusive person, and they didn't do that, and they get this and that? And, a life path has windy, crooked roads. They suffer in and of themselves anyways, even without, a crooked road. So there are these kind of like different ways that we could look at reality and kind of like pull teachings from it. So what natural law specifically I chose to teach it from was not necessarily, I wasn't teaching natural law, do unto others as you would have done unto yourself, as though evil doesn't exist and there's different, terms and conditions for evil, but more so as if we have a higher self, and if we care about higher guidance, and if we care about a spiritual team, and if we care about, good for humanity, then this would be the best kind of like tool. This would be the best resource and knowledge for us to really align with, because this will build that internal integrity. Natural law in and of itself comes twofold. The first part is do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. That is the feminine. You could look at it as that's the feminine one. It is very liberal. And I don't mean that in a political. I don't say liberal ever talking about politics. Right. I'm like part French, so that's probably why I say liberal so much. Like, oh, it's liberté. Like, so it's non-judgmental. It's literally like, no, you're doing the exact same thing in a different way. That like, judgment isn't because we're better than someone and we need to have compassion. That's usually where people think judgment comes into play. Judgment's even above that. Judgment is saying you really don't understand this path, so it's best to just not judge. That's non-judgment. That's true non-judgment. When I go into non-judgment, it's not because I'm gaslighting myself because I see something clearly and I need to, like, I'm bad for seeing something clearly. No, that's called discernment. When I go into non-judgment, it's because I am not controlling the fact that I need to understand and abbreviate a narrative that's far larger than I can currently comprehend about something.
Yes.
So that's the feminine part of natural law. It's non-judgment because you're doing it somehow in some other way. And even if you're not doing it in some other way, it has a process and you don't know the entirety of that process. So it's best to just not judge. Therefore, every being is given sovereignty. Every being is given freedom to be, however they wish to express. However, more of the masculine end of the polarity of natural law will be that there are consequences for trying to force another to be inside your truth. There are consequences for trying to coerce or force others for trying to create your own reality through having them forced to serve your reality. So there's consequences. It's like in tarot, it would be described as the justice card,
right,
and the world. Those are both natural law cards that are literally depicting that. When they were made, they were depicting that. So these are the two sides of these are the two polarities of natural law. It's that there is some form of, universal repercussion for invading another person's freedom or invading and coercing another person's sovereignty. And then, we can talk about the complexities of that because that's philosophical. Many people answered back when I make natural law videos. They have something very fair that they say inside the comments. They say, well, then I shouldn't do anything because so I shouldn't fight back if somebody hit me or things like that. So it gets philosophical because natural law is not telling you to not fight back. As a matter of fact, natural law is saying that your actions and inactions both matter. So you are even responsible for not taking actions.
Right.
So it's not trying to suppress you. If it is, that's because the teaching comes through weaponized. That's not the original form of the teaching. The original form has both of those yin and yang polarities within them. And it's the best in this age. It's depicted in those memes that you see online where they say, do no harm, but take no is.
Right. Well, I think on the flip side, what we're seeing in the world is it's naturally, we're moving into a consciousness where we have this sort of empathy. We see into someone else almost instantaneously. When I meet someone, I totally know them. I know everything about them. because I feel like I am them. I see it from their eyes. I can experience, and like I see the reason for what I would consider to be their flaws, which may not be at all. And so how could I hurt myself? It's this consciousness that it feels to me over the last 10 years, every day it's been like a drop of water in the bathtub, just slowly getting more and more. This empathy, this connection with others is growing, a tangible energy, so that even now, over the last 2 years, my connection to people, when I'm walking through Target, it's a different experience when I'm seeing my other self. And that is part of the natural law at work, growing naturally, because we are a universal consciousness. That's what we're moving towards on this planet, is a social memory complex, a universal consciousness. And we're in the beginning stages of that, and it's this consciousness every day. It's why the world can seem crazy, because we're seeing the truth of people that was already there before, right? I'd love to get your take on that.
Absolutely. It reminds me of that one quote inside the Crucible. It's like, everything is as it always was, only naked now.
Only naked. There are no more clothes, right? Yeah.
Yeah, everything is as it always was, but now there's no there's no masquerading it. The mask has fallen off. And there is no attempt to put the mask back on. There is only now kind of like just revolutions, literally cycles of seeing the face for what it is, but the mask has fallen off. And so it's something that I feel like at a collective level is initiating a dark night of the soul, but for the embetterment of us. And then for, like you have kind of the conscious community, the spiritual community. I would say that our roots, our foundation of these communities was already seeing through that mask. I mean,
for a long time.
Yeah, for a very long time. So, and I don't really know I can't really say one spiritual circle I know that does not come from that knowing. Like, that's almost what made people conscious or spiritual in the first place.
Yeah.
So in that case, I call that the first wave of ascension, because it's different curriculum. It's not going through the same dark nights of the soul. Even if there's dark nights of the soul that we're still going through, because we're always evolving, it's just not at that same octave. It's not, at that same level. It's something where now I see a lot of creative solutions, a lot of things wanting to be put in place to phase out any form of abusive structures and systems.
And part of the result of this is that we can see the false light much faster, because as we enter into this empathy and awaken to just the reality of others as we interact with them. What was very subtly false light is now out in the open. We can tell that it's false light. It's so much more obvious. As soon as I'm watching a video or a speech, I just know right away. It's right, and that's part of what's going on. It's harder to be in the false light now.
I want to say that. However, I still see people really hung up on certain political figures, and I could tell that that's coming directly from daddy issues. and if directly. And I'm not saying that to bash daddy issues, because if it was a mother there, I would say, oh, this is mother issues. So it's really just, and I'm going like, how could there be so many check the boxes on discernment and then these like large red flags? But I guess that's still like the curriculum. I guess the curriculum is here's how I see it. Mm-hmm. If enough healers, I consider you a healer too. If enough healers just keep raising the collective's awareness and consciousness, then that issue falls apart, because now the person is more mature than whoever the false leader was representing to them. So I see both the mommy and daddy issues of the collective just simply being healed through the organic process of development, because then you'll get the ick on your own, and it won't be like, man, I don't know if I could trust Sarah on that video, because it's like, don't trust me, let's develop.
But we're just seeing the unconsciousness of people, and when in our state, it's difficult for us to watch just the unconsciousness. At least once a day, I might be commenting to somebody, I can't believe that they are like that. They seem so rational, so normal, and then they do that, and then they act like that. And we're seeing like that. We're seeing that on a daily basis, and it could be daddy issues. It's all of those things. It's also just manipulation. And my hope is, because I know people that have lost hope. My hope is that it becomes darkest before it's dawn, and that we're going through a phase that is teaching us there is another side. When we come out the other side, it's going to be so much better because of what we're going through in general in the world.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. That's what the whole timeline split kind of like concept of a bifurcation was alluding to. And, you know, like through free will, there will be these different kind of like layers of reality that we're opting into or we're aligning with. And I see that like the largest part of the timeline split had taken place in 2025, and that we're, you know, that's actually how 2026 got started off with such a bang. So much happened because literally like a consciousness choice was made. And then from there, you look at, well, what would you need? What are the ingredients for this recipe of truly becoming conscious? And then now, you know, we're in the collective soup of that.
We're in the collective soup of that. Yeah. Man, it's been so much fun to talk to you, Sara. You got to come back on so we can talk about more.
I would love to.
And that would be absolutely amazing. You have an event coming up in Sedona in November, is that correct?
Oh yeah, my fall alchemy retreat. So this is my deepest in-person offering. I say that because people always want to ask me questions and talk with me, and I'm like, well, then come to my alchemy retreat, because I literally even have lunch and dinners with everyone. So I'm there the whole time, available to hang out and answer questions, even just beyond the extensive curriculum that we cover when we're in class.
What's the best way I can get a ticket?
So you can register at my official website, thealchemist.community.
Thealchemist.community, all right. And I'll make sure to put a link in the description for that. And make sure you watch Sara's amazing show, Mystery Teachings on Gaia. It's so incredible. It's so well done. So will there be a season 3? Are we going to see a season 3? Hopefully, fingers crossed.
I mean, that's what the contract says.
All right, sweet. Yay. All right. That's what I like to.
If there is a season 3, then it's going to be fourth way teachings the whole way through.
Fourth way. Let's go. Let's go. Because that's something in the YouTube community in particular of spiritual thinkers, we're not seeing a lot of Gurdjieff. I feel like we're about to go through a little Gurdjieff period, like where we see like Neville Goddard or Ouspensky. Wouldn't it be interesting where you see some big videos on that? So I'm excited to see that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'd love to see you make one if you ever.
I have one coming out. I just recorded it, so.
I'll definitely watch
it. I always like to ask before we go, do you have a favorite movie that you recommend that I watch?
I Heart Huckabees.
Such an interesting choice.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Ah, yes.
Perfect. Never-ending Story.
Never-ending Story. Let's go.
My favorite is Kill Bill Volume 2.
Kill Bill, I think it's better just as one movie, but I agree, Volume 2.
No, you're right. It is like one
such
movie.
A brilliant.
Yeah.
Kill Bill was such an incredible experience.
That's my favorite movie, yeah.
As a Tarantino fan, it's the culmination, right?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. We got that. So before you go, I have something special to share. On November 20th through the 22nd, I am hosting a 3-day live in-person event at the Hilton Sedona Resort at Bell Rock in the Vortex. 3 full days of immersive transformation in one of the most powerful energy centers on the planet. Pineal gland activations, quantum jumping, higher self connection, future self merging, bliss body, wealth consciousness, large sums of money flowing, retro-causal influence, a technique based on real quantum physics that your future self is already using to bring you here. The vortex amplifies everything. The earth becomes your co-creator. This is something a recording or a single meditation cannot replicate. Tickets are in the description. The space is very limited. I am keeping this intimate because of the power of this location. Sedona, Bell Rock, November 20th through the 22nd. This is the one. You can click the link in the description, or you can go to www.brianscottlive.com/Sedona-2026. I will see you there. I can't wait.